How's it going, everybody? My name is Infamous Isaac, and I'm here with the last part in the Amazing Spider-Man duology with Spider-Man 2. And I would have gotten this out sooner, but I haven't had the time to watch the movie until today when I'm recording this. So now I'm able to get it out to you guys, and you guys can hear my opinion on it. And after that, we'll see where we'll go. But as of right now, this is me talking about the Amazing Spider-Man 2 for however long I do it for. So let's get right into it. Let me start off with what I disliked first, honestly. Let me start off with what I disliked. Actually, let me preface this before I do that. Let me preface. So, when I was younger, I remember watching this movie. Remember my older sister bringing me to the movie theater, and we went to watch this movie together. Mind you, I barely remembered anything from it, but the parts that I did remember, I remember really liking. So I was excited. So I've seen a good majority of this movie before. I just didn't remember it was a long time ago. And now it's time for me. I'm a lot older. I can talk about this now. About this movie after it being so long. I think like eight, 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. But yeah. So this movie, let me start with the negative. Like I said, the negatives. There, there's some pretty big negatives, but not like overwhelmingly so to where it detracts from the movie. Like, how do I say this? The negatives don't overshadow the positives, but they are present and they shouldn't be overlooked. And one of the negatives that I can think of is Peter's family, again, and not like the Uncle Ben and Aunt May. I mean like literally his mom and dad. And it's not even because like it's bad in any sense of the way. It's all right. Their story at least, but I already didn't really care much for Peter's family in the beginning in the first movie, and now they have a whole like 10-minute section to themselves in the second movie. In the very beginning, no less, in the Spider-Man movie, I was like, I honestly couldn't really care less as what's going on right now. Granted, that was amplified by the fact that when it was a scene in the airplane in the beginning where they were fighting, Peter's dad or Richard Parker and some guy, and the shaky cam was horrendous. Oh my goodness, I could not stress that enough. I was getting nauseous just looking at it. And there's some scenes like that in this movie that just like, man, I don't like looking at this. Not because it looks ugly, but because it literally hurts my eyes. Like the the excuse me, the shaky cam in that scene was horrible for me. I was getting nauseous just looking at it. My eyes could not handle it. And there was another scene later on in the movie where Harry Osborne and his, goblin transformation. It was I couldn't watch it. I literally could not watch that scene. Like I had to close my eyes as best as I could because it was just a light show. Like I could not watch that scene. It was too much. But some of the scenes like that really hurt me to watch, so I couldn't really like them. But that doesn't mean that all the scenes are bad, of course. I'll get to the good ones later. But another thing for sure was, let's see, um, what else did I write? Okay, Harry Osborne. Since we're talking about him as well, um, he was definitely something. He was a character. He was a character. Do I dislike him? No. Do I like him a lot? No. He was an interesting character to see because compared to Sam Raimi trilogy, um, Harry, I don't think he's good or as good. Do I think he's a better Goblin? If on Yeah, honestly, I think he's a better Goblin because he's literally insane. Like I think that this Harry in the Amazing Spider-Man is a better Goblin, but he's inferior. Like not even the actor, but more like just the Harry here in the writing is inferior because of multiple reasons. Number one, this is the first movie that we see him in the Amazing Spider-Man duology. So we don't know anything about him. We never saw him in the first movie, or if we did, it was like a cameo or something. But I do not recollect a single memory from watching that first movie of Harry talking to Peter at all. Which I mean, of course, it makes sense, right? There's a reason why they didn't talk about Harry because he was gone in Europe in boarding school for 8 years while Peter was in high school. So of course they didn't have time to talk. He wasn't there. But because of that, if they didn't have him there but they planned to use him, why not have flashbacks to Harry? Or at least more scenes with Harry in general, right? Because we barely get to see him. You know, we get to see him twice, interact with Peter twice, and that's not even including the Spider-Man stuff. With Spider-Man included, we got to see him interact like 4 times, and that's it. It sucks. Like I really wish we saw more of Harry, so we could have developed that friendship that him and Peter had instead of just saying like, "Oh yeah, they have a good friendship," or at least they have a friendship. And the other reason is just like Harry, because of that, like not even just Peter's relationship with him, but just in general, like he's underdeveloped because of the fact that he showed up now. And obviously, you can write a character in one movie, of course. Like look at Norman Osborn, Green Goblin from Sam Raimi. But I feel like it just wasn't enough for him. He was definitely a minor villain compared to the what was Electro. So Harry, I didn't really like that much in this movie, but I did like his actor for sure. His actor, when he was Green Goblin, he was insane. He was literally insane. When he was Harry, like normal Harry, he was alright. He was inoffensive. But Green Goblin, he was amazing. Was he better than Willem Dafoe? No, but he did a really good job with the Goblin. Like it showed just how insane he literally was. But Electro was next, and Electro he has a lot more good than negatives, but I do have some negatives, or actually more like opinions, I guess. Electro's blue skin is a point of contention because of the fact that he was blue in this, but in the comics he's a normal guy with a yellow piece on his head. And in No Way Home, he's just normal Jamie Foxx. And I wanted to mention that because of the fact that like I don't mind the blue skin at all. I thought it was cool. It doesn't look bad. Like it isn't jarring sometimes like it was with what's his name, Kurt Connors and the Lizard. It could be sometimes like you could see the CGI like kind of like morph in, but I definitely didn't dislike it. I thought it worked well for what was already established in the Amazing Spider-Man stuff, you know, with Kurt Connors and Rhino. But I'll get to Rhino in a second. So, you know, Electro, I'll get to him more later, but just like I do like his normal skin color better. Like instead of just him instead of him just being blue and inferior, I'd rather him be dark skinned just like his normal hue. Because Jamie Foxx in No Way Home with the lineup compared to Jamie Foxx in this one, it's such a stark difference. It's crazy. But yeah, so next is Rhino. Rhino was whack in this movie. I do not like the way he looks in this in his suit compared to what he looks in other stuff, like in Spider-Man PS4. And obviously, you know, it's realism. It's a realistic movie. Well, to an extent. So it's hard to make what's it called somebody like that into Rhino when it's just a normal dude in a suit. But you definitely could have with the way that things were going in that movie, with Harry having all the experiments, turning Aleski or Alexis or something like that, the Rhino himself into like a superhuman, a mutant. Like they definitely could have done it in a story, and they definitely could have done it in a CGI, or at least like if this movie was made like in 2018, like when Endgame was made, and they did the same thing they did with like Thanos or something, where they made him bigger, they changed his color, they just made him look like the Rhino, you know. They definitely could have done it, but It's 2014. It's a 4 year difference. I don't know if the budget was like there or not for that, but then again, he was also a first minute and last minute villain. So I guess it's like, all right, who cares? It's the Rhino, I guess. It's more of a nitpick for me, but I definitely don't like the Rhino suit in this at all. But a good scene, a really good scene. And honestly, my favorite scene from both the movies came out from this from that final part. So we'll talk about that later. But besides that, it's just it could have been better. These scenes definitely could have been better in the movie overall. Could have been better, but before I go into the movie overall, I do want to talk about the good. So the good. After the Peter's parents on the plane scene, the intro fully starts. And let me tell you, the intro to this movie was amazing. The intro of Peter swinging around New York, fighting the Rhino before he becomes the Rhino, a bunch of plutonium and all that, saving the plutonium, on his way to his graduation with Gwen becoming the valedictorian of the school. That scene was so good. Like that was quintessential Spider-Man in my eyes. Him saving the day, having a good time, helping people, stopping the bad guys, having some quips and all that, and also making it to his thing while being Peter Parker. Like being both at the same time. It was so good. I really loved the intro to this movie. It was honestly one of my favorite scenes from both movies. It was so good. Like you don't easily rack up like as many views as you on YouTube as you do with like Amazing Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi trilogy, and Tom Holland. Like people recognize Spider-Man, and this scene is recognizable, borderline iconic with the way it was. Yeah, it was fire. It was so fire. Then after that, let me talk about the other things I liked. The the relationships in this one, Peter and Gwen Stacy. The relationship was a little worse, like literally and in the movie as well, like compared to the first one. It definitely had its highs and its lows, and the highs were really high. But the lows sometimes were just like, dang, bro, Peter, you gotta fix this, or not even fix this. Like you just gotta make a decision, which made the payoff even better. But they did go through some hardships. Did I feel like it was as natural as it was in the Sam Raimi trilogy? Yeah, I definitely did because Peter had real problems. Like he definitely had valid points to not want to date Gwen Stacy, but also he had to come to his own decision as to why he still wants to. And Gwen Stacy herself, she oh, happens every time I start talking for so long. Um, every time, something good's happening to her, like she's going to college and all that, she has a bright future ahead of her. She still thinks back to Peter, but she wants to move forward. But she still knows she loves him. So it's definitely like realistic drama. And that's one thing that these movies definitely got like perfect. The relationship between Peter and his significant other, and this time it's Gwen Stacy. Like their relationship is so fun to watch. I love watching Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone on the same screen. Like if I wasn't mistaken, I felt like they were dating. Like those two actors themselves. Well, not well, if I were to say that they were dating, and it would come out one day like, oh yeah, they're dating. I wouldn't doubt it at all. I wouldn't like be shocked or anything. Like, yo, these people are way too good at acting for that to not be real. Like, that's so crazy. But Emma Stone, Andrew Garfield, Gwen, and Peter, both great jobs. Peter sometimes could come out flat, but at the same time, he would also come out swinging. Like, some of his lines were crazy. And honestly, it was definitely when he was Spider-Man. And at the end scene with spoilers, by the way, spoilers for sure. Spoilers for this next thing. Skip ahead like 20 seconds. But Gwen Stacy's death, especially there, it was it was crazy. But yeah, what's it called? If you skipped ahead, welcome back. um, what's it called? Those two characters really good on screen. Really good on screen. Probably my favorites, honestly, out of the whole movie. Um, Then after that, you have talked about that. Already talked about that. You have Electro himself. Honestly, he was definitely the best villain in the movie, like by far, bar none. Jamie Foxx was a great Electro, but more like when he became Electro than he was as a Max Dillon. Because Max Dillon was just normal, nerdy. I guess for lack of better words, loser. I don't like using that word too much, but he wasn't. He definitely wasn't a confident guy. He was even worse than Peter in terms of like confidence. But when he became Electro, he became sauce. Like he became saucy. That was when Jamie Foxx came out. And Electro honestly was definitely my favorite part of the movie. Like him fighting Peter and all that was great. I thought his introduction was a little like, oh, okay, this dude is weird. So it put me off to him a little bit, but him becoming a villain for sure was something, was great. Definitely the best part of the movie, or one of the best parts, I mean. And that segues into the fight scenes. The fight scenes in this movie were great. My favorite one being the Electro versus Peter, like the first time they fought in Times Square. That was one of my favorite, if not my favorite scene from what's it called? The movie. Besides like the last scene, which I talked about earlier. This scene was awesome. The fact that they used the set play for Times Square, the fact that Electro was just so cracked, the fact that Peter didn't know what to do, the fact that Gwen was there, like people started cheering for Peter, but we knew like, oh man, come on, he didn't want to do this. It just happened by accident. It was a freak accident. It's just seeing both sides, feeling the emotion, feeling like, yo, this dude doesn't deserve what happened to him. And it's not like the Sam Raimi trilogy where Peter's trying to help him. Peter's definitely trying to stop him, for sure. Because Electro can't like run loose for forever. He needed to be stopped. He couldn't help him. Electro wouldn't let Peter help him. Like, oh yeah, excuse me. It was definitely difficult. So the fact that they had to come to blows shows like Peter's still a little bit inexperienced. He can't do anything. Like, well, not anything, but like he can't do everything by himself. And Gwen knows that, so she always is trying to help. She's making sure that she isn't a damsel in distress, but somehow that still happens. But the fights were awesome. I really enjoyed them. Were they my favorite fights? No, but the Electro one was definitely one of my favorites. His intro in Times Square was awesome. It was so so good. The other fights though were all right. Peter versus Harry was cool, but not crazy. Peter versus Electro the second time was cool, but not as good as the first one. To me, I definitely think that the final Kurt Connors fight is still my favorite compared to the second movie, but Electro versus Peter the first time was good. Definitely like the second best fight in the entire duology. And then after that, we have the final end scene. After the spoiler, skip ahead if you do not want to be spoiled. Um, After Gwen Stacy's death and Peter's all like melancholy, he's sad, he doesn't know what to do, he doesn't know how to go forward. And oh, spoilers end by the way, spoilers end here. After that, he hears on TV, what's it called? That a kid got in front of the Rhino. The Rhino's out. He's going down New York, and he's listening. Peter's listening to Gwen's graduation speech, and it's giving him hope because the whole point of the speech was hope. And he pops out, and I tell you like this is probably like this scene got me tearing up for sure. It definitely had me tearing up. And it was Peter seeing the kid in front of the Rhino. Everybody stopped shooting. Everybody's in awe. Like, what's gonna happen next? Like, and Peter shows up and she's like, "Kid, you did great. You're a real brave kid. But don't worry, I got this now. Thank you." And I was just like, man, that was amazing. That was so good. And then he shows up and he starts boxing Rhino, and that's where the movie ends. And now, honestly, when all that's said and done, let me talk about what I think about this movie and which one I like the most out of the duology. So this movie for sure was a 6.5 to 7 out of 10. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was bad either. I think it was okay. The good parts were really good, or at least the good parts were good, borderline great. But the bad parts were like indifferent. I was indifferent towards, or borderline like, I think this is boring. Like I wasn't falling asleep at the movie, but I was just like, man, I don't care about these people, bro. Or sometimes it's just like, man, I don't know if this is better than the first one. And I tried honestly to give it like the best shot that I could. I'd be like, yeah, this movie's amazing. You people are hating on it. But I will say this. I will say this. This movie is not dismal like some people say. This movie is not as bad as people think it is. And I will 100% stand by that. Like the same way people think that Spider-Man 3 is horrible. I will say that Spider-Man 2, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not as bad as you think. Is it a great movie? No. But it's a good enough movie to stand like, okay, this is worth the watch. Multiple run-throughs? Probably not, but it's worth watching at least once. Like, this movie is not as bad as people say it is. And I can definitely say that now after rewatching it. Like, I got some enjoyment out of it, and that's all that matters. I can find some enjoyment. I can derive some from it. Now, all that's good and well, but is it better than the first Amazing Spider-Man? No, it is not better than the first Amazing Spider-Man. It's hard to say whether between Kurt Connors and Electro who was the better villain, but I can definitely attest to the fact that both of them are great. But the first movie to me was just better. The fighting, the set play, or not the set play, the set pieces, like the school, the sewer, New York itself, the construction beams, Kurt Connors, his plan, Gwen Stacy being introduced, and his Peter or Peter and his relationship with Gwen. Excuse me, that was terrible. And his relationship with Gwen blossoming. I feel like the first movie was better, just better overall. I really enjoyed the first movie. There were so many good scenes in it. The ending was great. Granted, I think the ending to the second movie was better, not because the first movie's ending was bad at all, but the second movie definitely gave me hope. It 100% gave me hope. Uh, the first movie to me overall was just better. I thoroughly, and I mean thoroughly enjoyed the first movie. It was right behind, or maybe in between the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man and the second Sam Raimi Spider-Man for how good it was. But the second movie, honestly, not that it doesn't hold a candle, but more like it's just not as good, and it's visible once you watch it. Like, could it have been better? Yeah, of course. But are we like, if I had to choose right now, if Sony came up to me and was like, "Yo, ayo, Spider-Man 3, Andrew Garfield, Gwen Stacy," I would say yes immediately, bro. Andrew Garfield in Amazing Spider-Man 3, I would take that in a heartbeat. This man deserves a third movie. For sure. Even if the second one was not as good as people say, or if it didn't do well in like the box office, he deserves a third movie. He 100% deserves a third Spider-Man movie. And whether it's good or not, we'll just have to see if that ever happens. The rumor about Andrew Garfield getting one, are still out there. So we just have to wait and see. But he definitely deserves one. He definitely deserves one. But for right now, if I had to give it a rating, a 6.5 to 7 out of 10 at its best, it was an 8 at its worst, it was a 5.5. It was alright, but it wasn't better than the first one. And after that, I mean, that's all the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Now, I do have to do something though. I do have to go to Tom Holland's movies again and watch them. I already did reviews on them a while ago, but I have to go watch Civil War because that was technically his first appearance. So I do have to watch that to get more info on like the Peter Tony relationship, while also seeing Peter at his like youngest, and just it being like the the cornerstone of Spider-Man, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man. And after that, I'll watch the Tom Holland movies again at some point, and I'll give you guys like a video, like, oh, which one do I like the most? Which one do I like the least? What do I think about blah 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 blah? All the things that I liked, and you guys will see it, my opinion on all these Spider-Man movies. But oh yeah, I forgot to mention the musical score in this movie. The first two movies, I didn't really like. I can't really remember any of the songs. Unlike Spider-Man 3 with the Venom scene, man, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, it was so good. But this movie score, I can't remember. It wasn't like horrendous. It wasn't out of place. I just can't remember it. To me, I guess it just wasn't memorable. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for me for now. Amazing Spider-Man. I'm glad I watched these movies. Do I regret it? No. Now I have my own opinion on these movies. I can say whether or not I like the Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2. What I think about the duology. Do I think Andrew Garfield deserves another movie? So on and so forth. But next is on to the final part. And, oh, not, excuse me, Tom Holland. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you all for watching. But, I'll see you guys later. Everybody stay safe. Like and subscribe if you like, huh. Like and subscribe if you're amazing. If you're amazing like Andrew Garfield. And yeah, peace.